people all over the world, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome again to My Women. We are so happy you are joining us for the first episode of season 2 of My Women, our women empowerment program. You know, nearly 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime, and slightly more than half of female victims live in households with children under 12 years, which makes domestic violence a serious issue worthy of discussion. And today with me to discuss is my very special Mama Janette. And before then, let us enjoy our theme song, My Women by Riala.
Educated, talented, she knows her worth. She's cultural, a woman of substance. And when she walks, the world will stop and stare. She's a woman. And fearless, she knows her worth. She's grateful, a woman of substance. And when she walks, the world will stop and stare. She's a
Discussing violence against women and girls. Violence against women and girls. So with me is Mama Janette, as usual, our very loyal, our very loyal team member of My Women. But as many of you may not know her, in case you're watching us for the first time, I'll give her the chance to introduce yourself again so that all of you will know my beautiful Mama Janette. So, Mama Janette.
Good evening. Thank you again, Sister Grace, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be a part of your discussion platform. Thank you for giving me time on your platform to express my views on whatever current or cultural events that you're looking at. My name is Janet Barkley. As you can see, I'm a mother and educator, Jamaican to the core, world traveler, and a child of God. That basically sums up who I am.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. You know, you're a very special child of God, and I hope and pray that this message you are going to deliver will touch many lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So, Mama, please, as we are talking about domestic violence, can you just explain what domestic violence is all about and why it is so prevalent in our society today?
Okay, I'm going to look at two different types of definition and see if I can answer the question of prevalence. The first definition I'm going to give you comes from the 1993 United Nations Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence Against Women, and it reads, physical, sexual, and psychological violence occurring in the family, including battering, sexual abuse of female children in the household, dowry-related violence, marital rape, female genital mutilation, and other traditional practices harmful to women, and non-spousal violence and violence related to exploitation. Another type of definition um, is a little more inclusive of not just female. I'll just read. It says any abusive, violent, coercive, forceful, or threatening act or word inflicted by one member of a family or household on another can constitute domestic violence. Domestic violence was once considered one of the most underreported crimes, and it has now become more widely recognized since the 1980s and 70s. So various groups and individuals have defined domestic violence to include things like saying unkind words or demeaning words, or to grabbing a person's arms, to hitting, kicking, choking, or even murdering. So this definition is a bit wider than the one I just read from the United Nations. In terms of its prevalence um, in societies, um, when we talk about domestic violence, the common thinking is that in terms of its prevalence in society, um, I don't know about prevalence. The prevalence has to do with probably um, societies that are more male gender dominated. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. And those that have more of a traditional type of background, traditional, that still hangs on to a lot of traditional and cultural um, background stuff. So yes, it is common in lots of societies, not just all over the world. So let me just leave it there. It's a global phenomena, and especially during this pandemic, some other stuff are coming out that some Western cultures would have thought that they had gotten rid of, and because people have to be in close quarters for longer periods of time, we see some other stuff that we thought that would have been eradicated are coming to fore. So yes, that's my views right now on in terms of prevalence.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much about that. You know, I asked about the prevalence because of recent video surfacing on social media, as you said, due to the COVID-19 and people being quarantined or asked to stay at home and the lockdown and so many things. Because of that, we've seen a lot. Yeah. So thank you so much for that clarification. So Mama, when we talk about domestic violence, what usually comes to mind is a man abusing his spouse and so on and so forth. Like we see that male figure, all about that male figure abusing his spouse. So is that always the case?
Okay, sometimes we tend to be biased, but domestic violence is not really gender specific, and it has never ever been gender specific. But because there's this stigma attached to the male reporting of domestic violence or abuse, um, female committing this act is underreported, and in some cases not reported any at all, because there's this stigma on the male ego. So you find that men shy away from reporting this type of stuff. So it's not gender specific. If we have to be really honest, it isn't. The prevalence is among the females, though, and as I said, it's underreported and in some cases not reported any at all. So it's easy for us to have this view or this concept that it's a male on female thing rather than something that is broader and has to be looked on in a different light, a broader scope, if we want to really solve this problem.
You know, talking about male ego regarding this domestic violence issue and it being underreported, something funny came to mind. It's not funny at all, but whenever I remember it, I laugh. One of my family members, that was many, many years ago, about 20, 30 years ago, would always batter her husband. She was like the male in the family. Like the man had no say at all. Anything, because she was stronger than the man, she would just do what she knows best. So I just remember that's
I
why
know
forgive
I
me.
can relate. Because as you say that, something comes to my memory too. When I was growing up as a child, I'd visit my grandparents' home for summer holidays, and the neighbor across the road, the husband was very diminutive, short, slim. His wife was way taller than him, had a bigger build, and he was an alcoholic. So when he would get drunk, he would come home, and of course, he doesn't always find the bathroom to urinate, so some of that would happen in the home, and she would whip him good. And we could hear the crying, him crying from across the street. Those things were never reported. It was just taken as just it's them. But it's violence. If it was a man who was doing that to a woman all the time, then there would have been a huge outcry about it. So there was no way he would have reported that, or no man wants to admit that his wife beats him, you know?
You're right. You're very right, Mama. But Mama, amidst all of these, the truth is still there. The truth remains that violence against women and girls is a global issue, and it knows no boundaries, so race or culture. Because I've seen people from Brazil and UK, and not necessarily Africans or Black people, as the world has, painted it to be. But we see all of these races and cultures, seeing all this domestic violence among races, various races and cultures. So, do you think that this domestic violence issue has been normalized due to centuries of global silence? Because as you said, some issues are underreported. So do you think that we've been silent over this domestic violence issue? That's why it has become normal? Because sometimes I see that people even see it as normal, like they don't even report it. A woman may be battered or abused by the husband. She sees it as normal. No.
Right.
Right.
I don't
I
know if
don't
I
know
want to generalize and say that it's because of global silence, but it seems to be normalized, and I don't even want to say that it's normalized, because that change that have occurred in several societies across the globe, they're slow to change, and there are all kinds of reasons for this. And I can't go into them because your question didn't lead to it, but in societies where people fail to let go of some of their traditional beliefs, we find that it still continues. And in societies where both men and women are seen to accept that it's just a normal thing, or when children are raised to feel that it's okay for the man to beat the woman, or whatever violence that takes place, it's okay, even in cases where children are being abused. So by the time they get to X age, it's okay for them to be handed over to a male, whether it's a male family member or a real male relative or neighbor, because of poverty, to be handed over as someone who will now bring in money for the family. Those are things that are abusive. But some families take it as norm because they still hang on to cultural beliefs and stuff like that. And when we look also on things like female um, circumcision. That's also a cultural thing, and it's violence against women. But there are women who think that, hey, this is our traditional thing. Why do you want to get rid of it? It's a part of us, it's a part of our culture. And we can go to some of the Asian countries where they practice the menstrual huts, where a woman who has a menstrual cycle is seen as unclean. So these are cultural things, and these cultural things are what keep societies back in terms of having the type of changes that should occur. So personally, I don't think that it's normalized. And also there are many human rights groups that have been advocating for change, and this has been happening for centuries. Because as I said before, the since the 1990s, the
The
United
United
Nations have
Nations have.
come up with definitions, and they have stuff that they have ratified, and there are countries that have signed on to these changes and so on. But the change is slow in coming because of culture, and some of it is the acceptance by both male and female that this is the way the society should be. In modern society now, we have westernized women who are well educated too, some of them, who feel that if the man doesn't act jealous over them and hit them around a few times, he doesn't love them. So these are some of the things, understandings in society that cause the change to not come as it should be, you know. And what else I wanted to say? Let me just read what I have here, because this point is quite important. So there have been many changes
Have
in
been many
countries
changes.
worldwide, but societies with very strong cultural and religious beliefs are slower to change. In these societies, even the women themselves, who are mostly victims, are resistant to change and see certain changes as interfering with their way of life. There are even some cultures that see the change as wrong and adapting westernized ideas and culture set out to destroy the fabric of their society. And I use female circumcision and menstrual cuts as some examples. And there's also the honor killing that occurs in some Asian cultures, where even the women in the families consent and participate in killing the girl who chooses to marry out of the parental choice. So those are some things that we need to look at. When we talk about domestic violence, and not just a man in his home who is frustrated because of poverty, and he takes out his frustration on his wife and anyone and anything in his home. So he goes out, he gets drunk, and he comes in and he beats up on everybody. That is not the only scope of domestic violence, And there are women, because I've seen women run the car into a man's car and try to run him over, and the man has to be rescued by other people because she might find him cheating, or she might be jealous or something. So these are domestic violence. So, we have to look at it in context. What is causing the rage in these individuals that cause them to get to this state? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mama. So we will take some comments from our lovely viewers and then see if you can answer some of their questions and contribute or respond to their contribution.
Okay.
Okay. So, lovely people, thank you so much for joining us. We are very happy to see you all looking so healthy and beautiful. Greetings to you all, Sister Diana, Nyamiche Forsten, and Beatrice, Brother Kelvin, and all you wonderful people. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Sister Diana says that people in different parts of the world experience domestic violence in different ways, and by different individuals. It's a kind of form of violence, and it's sometimes pushed under the carpet. Yeah, you are very right, sis. Mm-hmm. And she also says that in most cases, the person or persons who have been affected often are afraid to speak out because of fear. Amma, what do you have to say about that?
That is true. There is that fear of the person, the perpetrator of the violence, and there's also fear of stigma in society. So we have to work on what is causing the violence first, and work on everything as an individual basis. We can't group situations because every situation is different. So we have to treat each situation as what it is. So a woman might live in fear of the man because he's someone that has grown up in this violence and he's violent. Then there is the thing that we always talk about, people who have mental issues that are undiagnosed, unrecognized, and so someone who is bipolar, who might be fine today and tomorrow he has a relapse and he gets off and something triggers it and he becomes violent. So sometimes it's not necessarily something that's innate, and then the one in the home will become fearful of the person and then because sometimes in families it might not want you to report it because they think it's a family issue. So they want to keep it in and you disgracing the family. So those things we find sometimes are not reported. And the flip side to that is sometimes it's reported, but the law, who is there to supposed to be protecting the victims, sometimes don't want to get involved because they say it's a family thing. Or in my country, Jamaica, they always says man and woman affair. So they don't want to get in the middle of it, So sometimes because of that, women don't report this domestic violence, and then it leads to them sometimes retaliating and committing the very acts that they were receiving themselves, or even worse, or might end up killing the individual because they have become tired of being abused, and we've seen and heard of many cases of women who put a knife to a man's throat while he's sleeping, pour acid on him, or pour hot oil on him, that sort of stuff. And sometimes because they have taken too much of this type of abuse. And some of them have ended up in the emergency too often, and doctors and nurses don't report it. In some countries, there are laws that it should be reported, but some in some of these places they don't report or they underreport. So the perpetrators get away. Yeah.
You are right, Mama. Thank you so much. And Beatrice Apiachom, she said men also suffer from domestic violence, but they don't report due to stigma and fear of being seen as a weak person. Yeah, Mama Janette had already addressed that. Thank you very much, sis. And Sister Brother Kevin also said, "This is so rich, deep, and educated." Thank you, Brother Kevin. And Akosia Samuel Emmanuel, my brother, thanks for joining us. And Florence Amenji Asaba, she says, on this issue of female genital mutilation, I think women of God will need to rally groups to storm into some of our local villages to sensitize them on the evil of this practice, as in some of them claim they wanted the female child to focus on her education, which I don't see right. Yeah, you're right. You're very right, Sister Florence. Mama, do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, I know that there are human rights groups who have started to educate women in villages and so on, but that's a sensitive issue too sometimes, because we have to be careful of the leaders in those communities, in those villages and stuff, who will see it as strong interference, and then sometimes it perpetrates more violence. So we have to be careful of how we go about it. We can be arrogant in terms of how we're doing it. Yes, we're sympathetic to the cause and we want it to change, but the way of going about it has to be sensitive too. We have to try and find key leaders who we can get to buy in to the change, so that they are the ones who will lead the change rather than try to get the change from outside. We have to always try to get individuals inside who are influential enough that will want to lead the change, lead the education. That's always a better way.
Okay, we'll take one more comment. Sister Diane, she says, in cultures where prominent victims are being abused because of fear of losing certain privileges and benefits instead of reporting abusers, sometimes certain compromises are made. Yeah. Mama, you have anything to say about that?
That is so right. And sometimes we have to be careful too, because I know I'm from a Western culture, but what works in a Western environment doesn't necessarily work in other environments, because we have to be thinking about religion and culture too. And if we want change to take place, we can't always just be dismissive of cultural and religious norms in order to make the change. So sometimes we have to keep compromising until we can get to the place where we have the total change that is required. And I'm talking generally, I'm not looking at a specific situation in terms of in a home, because we have to be sensitive to some of those things, because it's a little more prevalent in some areas, and in a forum like this we can be too specific because we don't want to. The aim is to make it known and how to get things to change, but it's not to tear down or to have really a big outcry where we want people to feel as if we want to just come in and enforce our views on them. We want them to be aware of the kinds of pain and damage that it does emotionally and socially to the victims. And so, coming from that position, then we will now allow them to see how better they can get across what the whole intent was in the first place. So if you want somebody to do something, if you don't just beat up on them. And because the person is a sole provider of for your resource, you can't, sometimes you have to compromise until you can get the victim out of the situation. That's where I'm going, because you do sometimes you could take away the mom, then the kids might be left there who will suffer, or the daughters will suffer, or the girl's mother might suffer. So we have to be careful how we go into our home to remove victims of domestic violence.
Thank you very much. Sir Yahweh Maksud, thank you very much for joining us, my boss. Thank you. So we will take a short break. Please don't go anywhere. We have more interesting discussion ahead.
Good evening. I'm Detective Malik. Gabrielle, can you please tell me about what's happened?
Well, it all started right after we moved in together. I mean, before that, he was the nicest guy. I mean, phenomenal. I really thought I met my other half. But I guess that was all a mistake.
When exactly did you two move in together?
It was March the 2nd.
Okay, tell me what happened.
It was Monday night. I was on the phone with my mom. And as soon as I hung the phone up, he just strikes me. For no reason.
Why did he hit you?
He said that I didn't properly greet him when he came home.
Did you tell anyone?
No. But he bought me roses. He told me he was sorry. So I forgave him.
Okay. Can you tell me about what happened next?
Tuesday night, he got home from work. And he hit me. He hit me so hard to the point where I had to call off work the next day.
Why did he hit you?
I did what any woman would do. I questioned him about the lipstick on his shirt. And he got angry.
Okay. Did you not tell anyone?
No. But he spent the whole morning apologizing and bought me a ring and said he'll make me his wife. Wednesday night, the same thing happened again. He beat me so bad to the point thought I was dead.
Why did he hit you?
His friends came over and he said I didn't dress appropriate and that I made him feel small.
Did you tell anyone this time?
No. He begged me to forgive him and said he only beats me because he loves and cares for me. Thursday night, he beat me again. And this time I tried to fight back, but he overpowered me. He overpowered me and beat me till I was unconscious.
What happened this time?
Nothing happened. Beating me became his habit.
Did you tell someone?
No. But everyone knew. because this time I'm dead. He killed me.
Gabrielle!
Welcome back, lovely people. I hope you learned something from the clip we just showed. You know, as Mama Janette said, domestic violence is not gender specific. But Mama, I'd like to ask, is there anything we can do to help girls and females who find themselves in such helpless situations?
There are many things that can be done, and each society is different. There are sometimes when we need to move the victim completely, especially in that kind of clip. The woman has to report it. Nobody will know if you don't report it. And we have to stop thinking that because somebody says he loves us or somebody makes us presents means that we should stay in that situation. You can't stay in a situation where you're being abused because you want stuff. So our priorities have to be right. That's the first thing. Our priorities have to be right. We need to also remove the victim from that sort of situation. Education needs to be done as well for both the victim and the perpetrators. Who need mental help needs to get mental help. If it's a different type of domestic violence, somebody has to be reported to the law. Somebody might have to be incarcerated. There are so many different things that can be done based on whatever situation it is, but it is never okay to sit in that situation. There are also laws that are on the books that needs to be practiced. A lot of societies have not been practicing those laws that are on the book. It's there, but it's not being used. And some societies need to change in terms of cultural and traditional cultural religious views that think that it's okay to beat a woman or to beat a man, whichever case. It's not okay. It's never okay. Violence is never the answer or solution to any problem. People have to be taught to communicate. People are also have to be taught to find themselves outside of situations. Don't sit and take it because of financial gain. It is better to be poor and alive than die rich just because you want to keep a certain status quo, a certain profile. You know, that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mama. Please, I would like to put two questions together this time.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know if there are any long-term effects of domestic violence on women, their communities, and the wider society, and how do we curb this phenomenon, even if we may not be able to eradicate it completely?
Okay. In terms of long-term effects, there is, because people suffer from emotional trauma because a lot of these cases are traumatic, and some end up having mental issues. Some people die. Kids are orphaned because of it. And even in the case of incarceration, kids lose both parents. One might die, one might be paralyzed because of it, because sometimes the woman retaliate and do stuff that will paralyze the man. Or the father might end up in prison because he's killed the mom. So there are a lot of traumatic events that result. And some people, there's a case, a batchmate from college of mine was explaining that there's another one who has had mental issues for over 10 years because he saw his dad shoot his mother to death. Now, that emotional trauma that that young man experienced is now not really old, really young now, is my age group. And he's not recovered from that. So think of generations having to go through that. Sometimes you see people on the street and you say, this person is crazy, whatever. You don't know their background. So you don't even know what sort of emotional trauma that individual has experienced. Then you also have those who become perpetrators of violence themselves because this is what they've seen growing up. So definitely there's all sorts of repercussions because of domestic violence. And your other question was, how can we change it? Um, Change is not a simple solution, especially stuff that are generational problems. So it takes communities to start the conversation. Um, Conversation has to be started at different levels. We should also make sure that the lawmakers are involved, leaders of societies, leaders of communities. These people need to form a part of this conversation. People who are able to make types of changes that will become permanent, effect changes that will change cultural thinking, change societies. Also, education of the persons in these situations. We need to educate them. There should also be places set up for nurturing of these kids who might have gone through this traumatic situation, as well as the women. So there are a wide range of stuff that can be done in order, and this list is not exhaustive, that can be done. I'm sure the audience have better suggestions or other types of suggestions as to how we can try to curb this type of occurrence.
Very much, Mama. Thank you very much, Mama Janet. So I think we have more questions and comments. Please give me only 5 minutes to. I think Beatrice Apiacham has a question. Thank you so much, Pastor Robert Lai, for joining us. Beatrice says, how can someone in a foreign country as an expert seek help for domestic violence? Beatrice, Mama, can you help her with that on that question?
I don't know if I have that sort of information to answer that question, because you have to, it depends on where you are. You have to seek counsel from your consulate first if you're in places that you're in contact with your consulate, and let them take it from there. There's always a legal recourse that you need to seek. So I'm not sure if I'm the best person to give an answer, but that's one of the avenues that I think you should try first. If you're an expert in a country, that's not yours. Definitely go through your nation's consulate to seek help and advice.
Very much. I think in Kuwait, the Kuwaiti government has a shelter for people like domestic workers and stuff like that. But I don't know if they deal with domestic violence. For that, I know that they only serve domestic personnel, that's runaway housemates and people losing their jobs. Okay. So thank you very much, Sister Beatrice. I will get back to you. I'll try to check if there is any shelter for women going through or men going through domestic abuse. Thank you very much. And Sister Diane says, sometimes it's what society or people who have been involved values. What is more important? Is it the abusive relationship or is it yourself? You know, sometimes people tend to be afraid, as you you responded earlier. You know, some women seem to be afraid of leaving their abusive or abusive homes because of what society will say or what society will do to them, or fear for their own future. But as Sister Diane said, what is more important? Is it your life or that relationship that you are in, or society? Do you think
That's
about what
true.
society? Yeah. What
Some
society?
people are more concerned about keeping a certain status quo. So you want to present as if I am Mrs. Whoever, or I am the girlfriend of Mr. Whoever. So you take the abuse and hide it, because in the end he's able to buy the most expensive stuff. So you can put the makeup on and cover the black eye, and you go out and you pretend. So women too need to place some value on themselves. So if you place things as more valuable than you yourself, you have a problem that needs to be worked on, and that has to do with your self-concept, your self-esteem. So there again, that's a whole lot of counseling that needs to be done for this individual. This person needs psychiatric and psychological help.
Mama, what I know also is that sometimes when we talk about domestic abuse or domestic violence or violence against girls and women or even men, sometimes what mostly come to mind is one party battering the other. But we should also remember that we have emotional, as Mama Janette said, we have emotional abuse or emotional violence, economic violence, physical violence, and even psychological violence, which we are going to discuss about that as time goes by. And also, I remember my late grandmother told me something very important. He said, as a woman or as an individual, you should value your worth, your self-worth. Yeah. It's very important. A person doesn't have to hate you, always, or insult you for it to be abuse. He can degrade you, humiliate you in public, curse you, blame you for his own or her own mistakes, manipulate you and try to get you to do certain things that you don't want. They are all considered forms of domestic violence. So you should also take note of that. And you should always say no to violence, no matter the form, no matter who is doing it. You should always say no. As Mama Janette said, you should not keep quiet. You should not be silent about it until we are dead. No, because anything can happen. The person doesn't need to hate you to kill you. Sometimes emotional abuse alone can be depressed as a
That's true.
result of that. Yeah. So
And I would, add to that a lot of times, because the women are the weaker individuals in a relationship, a lot of times they are the ones who perpetuate emotional abuse. And trust me, some stuff that can come out of a woman's mouth that can make a man feel less than a man. When you want to tell him that you're not a man, or if you're a man, you would, and this other man has done this and that, you're downgrading him. You're making him feel less than, and especially if he's not. If you're bringing in less money than him, that's emotional abuse and verbal abuse. But sometimes we don't see that as such. And I'm not downplaying the physical and verbal abuse that women feel, but we need to be balanced in that we see all of them in the same way, so that everybody can get the help they need. Because it makes no sense we change what happens to the women from the men, and then we allow the others to slide by, ignored, because we feel that it's not a thing. You know, everything has to be addressed. Violence is violence, abuse is abuse.
violence, abuse is abuse, violence is violence. So we must address it no matter who is perpetrating it. So we will take another short clip and then we come back to read some of our questions and contributions. So please don't go anywhere. If you have any question or contribution, you can still leave it in the comment section. Thank you very much. Video, a second video about the violence, domestic violence. Okay, while waiting for the video, let me take some questions. Okay, welcome back, lovely people. I'll take this question from Beatrice. No, I think it's a contribution. She says, if a woman is in an abusive marriage where the man keeps abusing her and apologizes afterwards, what advice do you have for her since her family is against divorce? For instance, if a woman is in an abusive marriage and the family is against divorce, what advice would you have for that person?
I'm not the one to go against family values, but one thing I can say, the family is not the one that's in the abuse. So even if you're going scripturally, there are scriptures that tell you that there are times when you have to separate for peace sake. And if during the time of separation, you can now work on sorting out what is the reason for all of this violence that is there. And seek terms of counseling, go through your counseling process. You make decisions now as to how you're going to come back together so that these things are not going to happen again when you come back together as a family. But there's no reason for you to sit and suffer any form of violence because a family is against divorce. Divorce doesn't have to come up. There's the word called separation, and separation is necessary for you to get away from the violence. So you can repair yourselves, both individuals, both husband and wife. The husband needs to work on whatever is causing him to be abusive, or if it's the other way around. And the victim of this abuse needs to also go through a healing process and a self-building process, emotional building process for you to understand, hey, it's not okay. And I'm sorry, I'm not against family and so on, but you don't dictate what happens in my home. It's between my husband, myself, and God. And if you are satisfied in the end outside of it, that's fine. But no woman should sit because her family members think that this is a good way or this is a good marriage to be in and it's probably bringing in money for them. It is not right.
It's not right. It's not right. Because you are not a commodity.
That's it.
You're not a commodity. Yeah. You should just, for my advice, just run. Run for your life. Don't sit and wait. As Mama said, you can go through separation and then see if there will be any change. Otherwise, I will not advise you that because of what family members are saying, you sit there and die. You are wearing your shoe. You know how it pains you. Sorry. So I'll take another comment from Sister Mirabel Manka. She says, taking abuse and hiding the pain is like public smile and private tears, which only lead to the victim's deterioration. Yes, you are absolutely right, Sister Mimi. Mama, you have anything to say about that? Oh?
No, I agree wholeheartedly that all of that is a waste of time. That's a show that's not helping anyone. You're just killing yourself with that, and you're not helping the perpetrator of the violence either. And for some of you, if you think it's because you love the individual while you're in it, love would not cause you to allow that person to get themselves into such a state that you might end up killing them or they might end up in prison because they kill you. So it's a choice that you make to make sensible decisions or um, take the nonsense and put a band-aid over it and put that smile on and pretend you're only hurting yourself.
Absolutely right, Mama. Thank you very much, Mama, for your Beatrice says, very educative program. Thanks, Mommy. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you. And Sister Diana said, I agree with you, Mama Janette. Are you going to get yourself killed in an abusive relationship because of your family members? That's lack of ignorance. Yeah, that's ignorance. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sister Diana, you're very right. As Mama Janet has already said. So with that, We appreciate all of you, lovely people, our viewers. Without your love and support, we wouldn't be here. Thank you so much for sticking by for another interesting episode. I know that you've learned a lot. You've learned a lot. Mama Janette is a full package. I always enjoy having her here. I always learn new things that I thought I knew. Thank you so much, Mama. Thank you. You are a
Thank
blessing
you
to me.
for having me.
Yes, thank you. End of this episode. But before we round up, if you have any special greetings, you can go ahead.
No, I just thank you for having me. And for those of you who've not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to their YouTube channel. And please remember that Full-Time Buzz is also a part of what they do. And just go ahead, subscribe to their platform, watch their videos, and be a contributor to some of the stuff that they have out there. Thank you so much, Lady Grace, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be a part of this platform.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. You are such a blessing to all of us. Thank you. God bless you, Mama. And Sister Annalyn, you are joining late, but we thank God you finally made it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's a very interesting, Ma. Thanks. Okay. So, beautiful people, as Mama Janette said, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and like our page, Full-Time Buzz TV, Full-Time Buzz Multimedia. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week with another interesting topic. So please don't miss it for anything. God bless you. Bye-bye.